You've probably heard this plenty of times before about how important it is to have an email list as an artist. Me and many others have already preached the gospel about email marketing before, so I'm not going to go into that speech today. If you're still unconvinced about whether or not this is for you and your business, then go watch some of my other videos about marketing and email marketing. I'll link them for you down in the description. I'm also not going to go into how to grow an email list because I've already touched upon that before in previous videos, and I also have some other videos planned about it more specifically. This video is for you who are already on board with this whole email thing. You are ready to become less reliant on social media and to build a calmer, more effective marketing and sales routine for your business. Maybe you've already gotten your first few subscribers to your list and now you're like, what do I even write about? You have stage fright. You feel like the most boring person in the world. You don't want to bother people in their inboxes. You've had your email list for months and you haven't yet sent out that first newsletter, and it's kind of a shame thing for you and your business. This video is for you, my friend. It's the video I wish I had when I first got started and had like 5 people on my email list, most of them family. I felt exactly the same way. Like, what's even the point of this? This is just a waste of time. No one's gonna read it anyway, and I have nothing interesting to say. I'm not talented enough. Writing newsletters is awkward in the beginning. We all start with an embarrassingly small email list, and that's a good thing, actually, because those people who are the first on your email list are likely the most loyal, loving fans of yours. They are the perfect audience to start practicing on without the pressure of sending out an email to 5,000 people. We aren't ready yet to broadcast to 5,000 people when we're just starting out. Just like we aren't ready to have 1 million people watch our very first YouTube video. It's just too much too soon. We need to ease into it. We need some time to find our voice and discover the best ways for us to talk about our art and promote our art. A huge benefit of starting out with a small list is that it will help you develop a writing voice that feels relaxed and like you. When it's just your mom and a few of your best friends on your email list, there's no need for you to sound smart and cool and profound or like anything that you're not. Unless you really are smart and cool and profound, in which way, congratulations, and just be yourself, I guess. But I think most of us feel kind of boring and awkward, but we can also be funny and passionate and empathic and really nice to be around for the people closest to us. And that's kind of the feeling that we want to mimic in our emails and our newsletters to strangers and potential customers. We want to move past the niceties and the small talk and the formal invitations to collect our latest work. That stuff is boring. We get enough of that as it is. What we crave now, I think more than ever, is realness. Just deep, genuine connections with each other. And that's how I want you to think of your newsletter as well. Not as spammy, please buy my art advertising. Not as a following that you want to grow as big and as fast as possible. Not the way we've been taught to approach social media over these past few years. But as a tool for long-term human connection. Because that's how you will really sell your art. To one person at a time. Because something about you and your art speaks to them at a deeper level. So forget about selling and forget all about the quick growth tactics and hacks. Go all in on human connection and building relationships. If your email list is in its early stages and you feel really awkward writing to it, then start super small and approach it as just a practice. You're practicing writing and talking about your art. You're practicing nurturing a deeper relationship with your audience. Just as you need to practice your art, you need to practice sharing your art in an authentic and relaxed way. it doesn't come naturally to most of us in the beginning. So view it as a practice and write those newsletters regardless of how many people are on your list and how many people are going to read them. Write them for yourself as a form of journal practice almost. And keep them really short and sweet if you want to. Longer is not automatically better when it comes to newsletters. In fact, the opposite can be true. Longer emails demand more of the reader and can be experienced as more work to go through if they're super long. And also longer emails demand more of you as a writer and content creator to kind of maintain their interest. So really, there's no pressure. Your emails can just be short little greetings and photos of your latest artwork with some captions. My number one tip for writing newsletters in a way that feels fun and relaxing and authentic, and that's also really effective at connecting with your reader, is to imagine a close friend when you're writing them. To think of them as letters to a close friend. You're simply writing to a friend who wants to see your art and see what you're up to and hear your thoughts about it. It can be an imaginary friend, or it can be a real person in your life that you can easily picture in your mind. And they don't have to be on your email list. You can just have them as a kind of stand-in for the type of person you want to write to and the type of voice that you want to have in your emails. If you can make your reader feel like they already know you and that you're friends, that's the feeling that you're aiming for. And that's how you write emails that people actually look forward to getting. These people want your emails. Okay, they have explicitly opted in to receiving them, and as soon as they don't want them anymore, they will unsubscribe. And if they do unsubscribe, then great. That is one less person on your list that you need to worry about boring or rubbing the wrong way. We don't want as many people as possible on our email list. We want the right people, especially if we have an email marketing subscription plan that charges by the amount of subscribers, which many of them do. Then you definitely want to go for quality over quantity with your email subscribers. Everyone you send an email to have explicitly opted in to getting them, and they might be delighted when getting them. So instead of worrying about bothering people, think about the ways that you can make sure your email is a breath of fresh air in their inbox. How can your emails be the ones they save for last, for when they have already gotten through the boring ones? My favorite artist newsletters certainly are a breath of fresh air in my inbox. I get to look at beautiful art, I get inspired, I get reminded of what's important in life, I get a break from the hustle and can connect with something that's more human. And even if I don't buy their artwork right away, each newsletter makes me feel closer to them. It makes me care more about them and their art. It makes me appreciate their art more. And as soon as my budget allows for it, who do you think I'm going to spend that money on? It's not going to be some rando that I stumbled across on Etsy or Instagram. I'm going to invest it in the artists that I have followed for years and have a relationship with. All right, let's get to the heart of the matter. What to actually write in your newsletters. If you are a fine artist who mostly sells paintings and prints, there's really no need to overthink this. Just share your art. That's what people want to see, that's what they'll potentially buy in the future. If you find yourself not knowing what to put in your email newsletters, then the first thing you should ask yourself is, have I been painting enough lately? I find that the times when I struggle the most when writing a newsletter, it's usually because I don't have enough to show, because I haven't really been painting. I've been caught up in other things in my business, like bookkeeping or website admin or content creation, which is okay and necessary. The only artist who can afford to only paint is the hobby artist, so you do have to spend your time on other things as well. But it also acts like a gentle reminder to myself that I am an artist first and foremost, and if I don't paint, I don't have a business, so maybe that's a time management problem for me to solve so that I can spend more time painting, so that I have more art to show and by extension to sell as well. Do you have to only send a newsletter when you have finished work to sell? No, I also share when I have prints for sale, like a new print collection. When I run a sale of some kind, I share works in progress and behind the scenes from my studio. Especially if you release your paintings in collections, you want to build up excitement well in advance. You want to share your whole process and not just the finished work. When I work on a collection and I have one or more new paintings ready, I don't wait until the collection release to show those paintings. The whole point of them being on my list is to see everything that I make as I make it, and to have insight into the process and to have the first look on each new painting. And so I share the new paintings in a newsletter and I talk about my process painting them, and I remind people that they're part of a collection, and if I have a date for the collection, I mention that as well. This way there's a much greater chance that when I do release those paintings that there will be already a kind of demand for them, and that people will actually care about what I've made because they've been with me that whole journey. How do you write about your art in newsletters then? It comes back to the close friend analogy. If you were showing this art to a close friend in a relaxed, casual setting, what would you say about it? Would you talk about your inspiration behind it? Would you share some knowledge about the subject? I paint a lot of wildlife, for example, and birds in particular, and I like to talk about birds. And I think a lot of the people in my audience also enjoy birds and animals and like to talk about them. So that's a natural topic of discussion around my art, is to tell more about that particular bird, for example. Or maybe you've traveled or been to museums or other places to gather inspiration. That's a great thing to share around your art. Or the process of painting it and what you learned throughout the process, how painting it made you feel, and maybe how seeing the finished piece makes you feel. The best advice I can give you on this is to follow a lot of other artists and subscribe to their newsletters and see how they do things. See how they write about their art and how they share their process. It's the thing that's helped me the most when I was clueless in the beginning. I've seen many examples of what to talk about and how to talk about it. And then I can pick and choose what to borrow for my own newsletters or what to get inspired by, because not everything that I see other artists do is going to feel relevant or authentic to me, but some of it will. One thing that's been challenging for me, especially as a new artist, is knowing how to speak positively about my art, even when I feel like I'm miles away from being happy with it. This is a difficult balancing act because it's hard to know when our art is good enough to market and sell, especially if we have a very strong inner critic like I do, and I think that many, maybe most other artists do. What worked for me in the beginning was to detach myself more from my art, because that way I could talk about both the good and the bad aspects of my art in a relaxed and also more positive way. I could be more honest about where I felt that my art was at. I was open with the fact that I was a fairly new artist, that I was on a learning journey, but I also practiced highlighting the stuff about my art that I did like, that I was proud of, even if it was just one small detail of a painting. There's usually always something good that we can find in each painting, or some little thing that we did right that we want to highlight and preserve for future artwork. I also want to make a case for vulnerability when sharing your art. If you've really struggled with a painting, write about that. If you messed something up with a painting, write about that. If you absolutely hate something you made, dare to admit that. Dare to show the nuances of the artist's life. It's not always easy peasy lemon squeezy and sunlit days in the studio and sold out collections. Being an artist can be really tough, and making art can be super hard sometimes. You don't have to seem like you always have your together, because I don't think most of us do. But if you can't come up with anything good about your art, or the process behind making it, or the inspiration for it, then maybe you're simply not ready to start marketing and selling your art. That is okay. It takes time to build enough skill and confidence as an artist. And you can still build an email list as you are learning and growing as an artist. You can share your journey learning art. You can critique your own paintings. Maybe don't expect to sell as many paintings that way though, because most of your audience is likely to be other artists who are going through similar things. That's how I started my email list. And as I have evolved as an artist, so has my newsletters. Another thing you can put in your newsletters if you enjoy writing is personal essays or journal-like posts, or even tutorials or guides, that kind of content. I sometimes write essays when I feel inspired, when I have something to share, like a story or advice or knowledge. If it's something that feels kind of evergreen, I also like to republish it on my website as a blog post. That way I get around that classic dilemma of, should I publish this as an email or should I publish it as a blog post? The answer might be both. If you take a lot of photos, consider including them in your newsletter as a kind of photo journal, kind of like Instagram was back in the golden days. But I actually prefer to get like a bigger photo dump in an email with stories around them. I think that's a much more relaxed, focused way to digest someone's photos. I love how Jamila Knopf does this. In her newsletters, they kind of feel like a travel journal with lots of beautiful photos and little stories. Another thing is link roundups and recommendation lists. It's a favorite of mine and also a favorite of my audience. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on my favorite things lists that I have in each newsletter, where I share what I'm reading and what I'm listening to, some videos I have enjoyed, maybe movies, TV shows, video games. I also share other artists' work when I discover a new artist, or an artist I follow share some new art. I like to feature that as well. It's one of the most enjoyed features of my newsletter, and it's one that I enjoy the most as well. I love sharing stuff that lights me up and inspires me. I love sharing other artists' work, giving shout outs. And I love it when other artists do this in their newsletters as well. It always feels like a little treasure trove for me to pick through, and also a great way to get to know them better, get to know their tastes and their inspirations. If you're an artist who also sells courses or educational products or coaching, which many of us do, it's a great way to diversify our income as artists, then you will have a whole slew of other great things to include in your newsletter. A big chunk of your audience is going to be other artists and creatives with similar goals and challenges and interests and experiences as you. Some artists lament over this fact because maybe they would rather sell more of their paintings than art courses. It is easier, I feel, to build an audience of fellow artists than it is to build a targeted audience of art buyers. It's easier to get discovered by other artists because we are naturally drawn to each other online. We need each other. We need each other's company. We need each other's support and inspiration. We want to learn from each other, which is why online art classes are so popular and tend to sell really well. And they're an amazing way to diversify your income as an artist. But let's not disqualify us artists as potential art customers as well. That's a mistake I've made in the past, and it's a mistake I see a lot of other artists make as well. Oh, well, I only have artists following me and not art collectors. But like, wait a minute. Do not artists also like to buy art? Do we not like to surround ourselves with beautiful things? Do we not have money to spend on art? And who are we to judge other people just because they also happen to be artists? They might be really successful artists. They might be artists with a well-paying full-time job. Most of us aren't only artists anyways, right? We are a lot of things. and we are interested in a lot of things. And who are these mysterious art collectors anyway? Guess what? They're regular people, just like you and me, with diverse interests, just like us. And yes, quite often they are also artists themselves, or they want to be. They might eventually start painting in their spare time. They might dream about making art a bigger part of their life, as one often does when dipping our toe into this world. And what happens then? Are they not allowed to be on our email list of potential art customers just because they're artists themselves? Isn't it a bit ridiculous when we think about it? I mean, sure, if you only paint huge, expensive, abstract paintings, then that is kind of a niche audience. But if your work is approachable and affordable by regular people, then there's really no point in trying to isolate art collectors, in my opinion. So don't exclude other artists from your customer base, even if you don't sell educational products or courses or coaching. And if your audience mostly consists of other artists and creatives, then lean into that. Other artists are my favorite audience. It's why I even have this YouTube channel to begin with. I love talking to other artists, both beginner ones as well as more experienced ones. I love sharing my experiences, the stuff I'm learning, my mistakes. I love supporting them and inspiring them, and I sell both educational products and art to them. And I never run out of things to write about in my newsletters because we have so many things in common to talk about. I can just draw upon my own experience and come up with 100 different topics to talk about, or questions to answer, or problems to solve. Just think about what you would like to see or hear or learn from other artists, or what you would have liked to read as a new artist. And you'll have plenty of stuff to write about in your newsletters. In my newsletters, I share behind the scenes from my studio. I share sketches and works in progress. I share what's going on for me in my life and my business, what I'm working on, what I'm thinking about. I just write to fellow human beings with similar interests and values as myself, regardless of whether or not they are artists themselves, whether or not they run an art business themselves, whether or not they consider themselves art collectors. They might buy my stuff for a wide variety of reasons, some of which I can't even predict, so I'm not even gonna try. Speaking of selling, let's talk about how to sell in newsletters, because that's a touchy subject with a lot of strong opinions. Some artists go pretty hard on selling in their emails. They might only send out an email when they have something to sell. Others barely even tell you when they have something for sale and you have to kind of go looking for it yourself. It's a personal preference thing. It depends on how you want to do business. I've tried both approaches in the past, and now I kind of place myself somewhere in the middle. I practice what I call soft selling, simply telling people what I have for sale when I have something for sale, in a very relaxed way. I don't push my products on people. I don't go too hard on the pitches or use overly salesy language in my emails. I very rarely send out pure sales emails. I mostly just like to mention my products in passing in my content when it makes sense. Like friendly invitations. Oh, and by the way, if you want to learn more about this, I have a course about it, or my new collection is out, and if you're curious, you can go on my website and see the whole collection. Or if you need more hands-on help with this, I also offer coaching. It just becomes a natural extension of talking about what I do. It's non-intrusive, but it works really well. And most importantly, it feels good to me. I know a lot of creative businesses have great success just selling their stuff in emails, sending out pure sales emails, letting people know when they have stuff available, how many pieces are left, running campaigns, that sort of thing. It's more of a transactional relationship than a personal one. And I'm sure it works great for some people and businesses. Always keep in mind that there are many ways to do things, and you're currently just getting my perspective based on my preferences and my type of business. I've tried running more transactional type businesses in the past, but it's never really worked as well for me, and it hasn't felt as good. It might work better on a larger scale, like if you're selling lots of lower priced items, maybe in combination with doing lots of social media work, maybe social media advertising. But again, that's not how I work, so I can't say much about it. I prefer to double down on the personal connection part, and I prefer to soft sell my stuff to a smaller but maybe a bit warmer audience, and I assure you it can work really well. You don't have to be pushy in order to sell your art. What about if you're a freelance artist looking for work? That's another common type of artist. Maybe your client is usually another business, like a publishing house or an ad agency, or maybe you're even looking for employment, like at a video game studio or something. Should you be doing email marketing, and what should you be putting in your email newsletters? For this type of artist, doing content marketing and sending out email newsletters is more of an optional thing, in my opinion. Most of your clients or employment opportunities are going to come from some kind of initiative on your part. You've pitched your work to a publishing company, for example, or maybe they'll come as a result of word of mouth recommendations, which is a huge thing for freelancers. Your clients are not gonna randomly come across you online and spontaneously hire you. And so there's really not a need to warm them up with free content or to nurture that relationship via a newsletter of some kind. Your time is probably better spent networking and sending out pitches, looking for opportunities to get your work in front of the right people, not to mention working on the quality of your work, building your portfolio, maybe doing pro bono work to gain experience. If you want to send out newsletters, maybe consider starting a newsletter for fellow artists in your field, perhaps with the goal of offering coaching or courses in the future. But if you're not called to do any of that, then just feel free to skip it. It's not necessary. Another type of artist is the pattern designer or the graphic designer or the illustrator who mainly sells their designs via stores or print-on-demand platforms. You will maybe have a bigger reason to build an audience of your own, but it's tricky because many of these customers don't usually come for you specifically. They come for the art or the design. They tend to come from being in the right place at the right time as they are looking for something. They might browse Etsy and stumble upon your design. They might browse local stores looking for the perfect wallpaper for their bedroom, for example. They'll usually not subscribe to a pattern designer's newsletter and from there get the idea that they need new wallpaper for their bedroom. And they'll usually not become a loyal repeat customer because how often do you need new wallpaper for your bedroom? This type of business relies a lot more on building up your presence in the places where your ideal customers can come across you. Your time is probably better spent scouting out these different channels or publications or stores or avenues of different kinds. Maybe pursuing licensing and wholesale deals, getting your work featured in publications. You'll need to reverse engineer your marketing, something I talk a lot about in my Calm Marketing workshop, my sort of masterclass in marketing for creatives. It's one of the videos that are linked below if you haven't seen it yet. I can't cover all possible types of art businesses in this video, and I want to emphasize that there is no one size fits all when it comes to business. Your strategy has to fit your personality and your ideal customer and whatever it is that you're selling. So first and foremost, ask yourself, who am I trying to sell to? What is their buying behavior? Where are they the most likely to come across your work and be inspired to buy it? Does a regular newsletter have a part to play in this puzzle? If not, feel free to skip it entirely. And if yes, think about what types of stories or content or inspiration that would be relevant to your potential customer. What would aid them in a buying decision? What would build a deeper connection with them? What interests and values do you have in common? And brainstorm your content from there. Follow other creatives in your particular niche or industry. Subscribe to their newsletters, see what they are doing, what they're writing about, and practice. Send out those newsletters, no matter how many people are going to read them. You will get gradually better at writing them and better at promoting your art with each one. And the better your emails are, the more people are going to want to stay subscribed and maybe recommend your newsletter to other people so that it can grow organically. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope I've managed to demystify artist newsletters a little bit, maybe give you some ideas for what to include in yours. If you have questions, please ask them in the comments. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.